All right, let's talk about Holi, but maybe not the Holi you're thinking of. We're going to peel back all those beautiful, vibrant colors and take a look at the chilling, sometimes terrifying stories that are hiding just underneath.
You know, when you think of Holi, this is probably what pops into your head, right? Just this incredible explosion of color, everyone laughing, music everywhere. It's that one day where friends, family, everyone just comes together, and all the usual rules kind of go out the window. It's one of the most purely joyful celebrations on the planet. But what if all that incredible energy, that peak moment of just pure celebration, what if that also cracks open a door to something, well, something much darker? What if hiding behind all that joy are these stories of curses, ghosts, and dangers you just can't see? And that's really the heart of what we're digging into today, these two very different faces of Holi. On one hand, yeah, it's all about good winning over evil. But on the other, some stories use it as this terrifying setting where evil decides to show up right when your guard is down.
So we're going to walk through 4 pretty different stories, all pulled from modern Indian folklore. And each one shows you a different kind of fear. We're talking everything from a personal haunting to a curse that affects an entire town. And the one thing they all have in common? They're all tied directly to the day of Holi.
Okay, so our first story is about a woman named Preeti. She's pregnant. You know, it's supposed to be this amazing, happy time in her life. But what happens to her is a chilling example of how the most vulnerable people can suddenly become targets for a danger you can't even see. And that danger, it has a name, Kala Jadoo, black magic. The whole idea behind it is that some people can use supernatural forces for, evil stuff. And get this, the belief is that really auspicious times like a big festival actually amplify that power. It makes certain people, especially the vulnerable, into a kind of magnet for this dark energy.
For Preeti, it all started small. On the night before Holi, she accidentally stepped on one of those flower lamp offerings you sometimes see at crossroads, a big no-no in these rituals. Well, that same night, something violently threw her to the floor, an invisible force. The next day, in the middle of all the Holi celebrations, she's attacked by a man nobody else can see. And then it gets even crazier. Her mom walks in to find her body just floating, levitating above her bed. It all came to a head with an exorcism. A tantric had to burn a piece of her clothing, and this weird blue smoke came out, which supposedly freed her from whatever was attached to her.
But maybe the creepiest part, the thing that really proves something was going on, came from a video her family was just casually shooting. As they're all celebrating, the camera catches this totally unsettling moment. Preeti's just standing there, nobody near her, but you can clearly see colored powder appearing on her cheeks, like an invisible hand is smearing it on her. Can you imagine seeing that? That was the moment they knew this wasn't just in her head.
So the tantric who helped her, he explained that the timing of all this was absolutely crucial. The Holi full moon, he said, is the most powerful full moon of the entire year, and that massive peak in energy creates this window of danger, especially for pregnant women and little kids. Their life force is supposedly like a bright light that attracts these dark entities.
All right, so from that very personal horror story, let's zoom out. Our next story shows how this kind of terror can grab hold of an entire community. We're heading to a village called Durgapur in Jharkhand.
Think about this. For 100 years, the people of Durgapur have not celebrated Holi at all. While the rest of India is just an explosion of color and noise, this one village just goes completely silent, out of fear.
So the legend goes back a century. The local king's son tragically died on Holi, and the king, just overcome with grief, banned the festival right then and there. A few years later, he couldn't take the sadness anymore and took his own life, on Holi. And that very same year, a horrible drought and famine hit the village. The people put it all together. They became convinced the land was cursed, and even now, today, they believe the king's angry, vengeful ghost roams the village on Holi, just waiting to punish anyone who even thinks about celebrating.
Okay, story number 3 takes us right into classic ghost story territory. You know the type. What happens when you wander into a place you really shouldn't be, especially on a day when the line between our world and the next is a little blurry. We're going to a ruined fort near Agra.
So picture it. 3 college buddies, Arnav, Rishi, and Akash. They're in Agra for Holi, having a great time, probably had a little too much pong, and now they're completely lost trying to get back to their hotel. Suddenly, they hear music and celebrating coming from this old, crumbling fort. So naturally, they think, hey, let's check it out.
And when they go inside, it's exactly what they expected. A huge party, people dancing, singing, they even jump in and join the fun. But then, as the sun starts to set, everything changes. The music just stops. The whole crowd freezes right where they are. And the friends look closer, and they watch in total horror as everyone's faces start to transform. They turn this sick, unnatural blue color, and their eyes go completely, terrifyingly white.
Somehow, they manage to run for it. They get back to their hotel, and when they tell the manager what they saw, he fills them in on the fort's gruesome legend. Turns out, years and years ago, a Mughal emperor attacked the fort right in the middle of a Holi celebration. He trapped everyone inside and burned the whole place to the ground. Now, their souls are trapped there, forced to relive their last party over and over again, every single Holi. And the worst part, any living person who joins their ghostly festival becomes one of them.
For our last story, we're bringing the horror much closer to home. It's a really chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't out there in some cursed village or haunted fort. Sometimes they're right behind the front door of what looks like a perfectly loving family.
So this is about a 12-year-old orphan Rohan. He gets adopted by this really amazing family right before Holi. They're super kind, really loving, but there's this one very weird rule. He is never, ever allowed to go to the second floor of the house.
And you know how this goes, right? Eventually, Rohan breaks the rule. He goes upstairs. And what he finds up there is a family secret that is just horrifying. And it's revealed to him by the ghost of a little boy. The sweet, beloved grandma, turns out she was secretly into satanic worship. And years ago, on Holi, she sacrificed her family's very first son. The ghost haunting that house is that murdered child. And he's not just hanging around, he wants revenge. Wow. Okay, so after 4 incredibly chilling stories, what's the common thread here? What's the takeaway? What is it about Holi that seems to connect all these different kinds of horror? Let's kind of break it down.
When you look at all these stories together, you start to see a pattern. There's this big focus on the innocent being vulnerable. Kids, pregnant women, they're always the targets. That Holi full moon keeps popping up as this time of huge supernatural power, for good and for evil. There's also this really powerful idea that the craziest, most joyful moments can be a perfect cover for some deep-seated trauma or just pure evil. And finally, you see how these curses and angry spirits are specifically latched onto the festival day itself. It really drives home the idea that you do not want to mess around on cursed or sacred ground.
So in the end, what all of these stories are really pointing to is this fascinating paradox. They're suggesting that the absolute peak of celebration, that moment when everyone's guard is down and spirits are as high as they can be, is also the moment you're the most vulnerable. The very chaos and energy that makes Holi so amazing can, in these stories, also rip open a doorway for darkness to slip right through.
And that leaves us with this one last, pretty chilling piece of advice that comes from one of the stories. It's a warning, but it's also a perfect metaphor for everything we've talked about today. During festivals, be sure to watch where your feet are stepping, because you just never know what you might be stepping into.